"Do not start that bus," the woman said, and every man in the garage turned to look at her as if she had interrupted a funeral. Rain hammered the metal roof of Reed Auto Repair, water slipped beneath the warped front door, and a yellow school bus sat half inside the service bay with 20 restless children waiting behind fogged windows. Mason Reed stood beneath the open hood, one hand wrapped around a wrench and the other holding a phone against his shoulder. "Yes, Lily, I know I promised," he said. "Put your lunch in the refrigerator. I will be there as soon as I can." A customer in a spotless golf jacket laughed from beside the coffee machine. "You run a garage or a daycare, Reed?" Two local mechanics smiled. Mason did not. He lowered the phone, wiped rain from his forehead, and returned to the engine. His blue work shirt was dark with water and oil. The garage smelled of hot rubber, old coffee, and damp concrete. "Your shop is 3 hours behind," the customer continued. "Your roof leaks, your phone never stops ringing, and now you are fixing school buses for free." Maybe Caldwell was right. Maybe this place belongs to someone who knows how to run a business. Mason tightened the wrench without looking up. Dignity had taught him that not every insult deserved an answer. Near the office door, Hannah Brooks stood holding a folder against her coat. She had been waiting 11 minutes for someone to notice her. No one had. "Are you hiring?" she asked. Mason glanced at the handwritten, "Help Wanted" sign taped crookedly to the window. "Not today. The sign says otherwise. The sign does not know what kind of morning I am having." Hannah looked toward the bus, then toward the lunchbox sitting beside Mason's unpaid invoices. "Are you looking for an employee or someone to rescue your entire life?" Mason closed his eyes for half a second. The rain, the customer, the school calling about Lily, the engine refusing to cooperate, all of it pressed against one tired nerve. "Right now," he said, "I need a wife, not an employee." The garage went quiet. Hannah stared at him. "Then you cannot afford me." One mechanic coughed to hide a laugh. The customer did not bother hiding his. Mason looked at Hannah again and realized too late how the words had sounded. "That was not what I meant." "It rarely is." She placed her folder on the counter, turned toward the door, and stopped. The bus engine gave a thin electronic whine beneath the steady tapping of rain. Hannah's expression changed. She listened once, then twice. Mason reached for the ignition switch. "Do not," she said. "I know this system." "No, you know engines. That is not the same thing." "And you are." Hannah removed a small diagnostic scanner from her coat pocket. "Someone who knows that sound is not coming from the alternator." The customer smirked. "She brought a toy." Hannah ignored him. She stepped closer to the bus, studied the instrument panel through the open door, and inhaled slowly. Beneath the smell of wet coats and diesel was something faint, sharp, almost metallic. "Voltage controller," she said. Mason shook his head. "The reading is stable." "Because the sensor is lying. You can hear that. I can hear what happens next." Mason's hand remained near the switch. Outside, lightning brightened the gray morning without thunder. Inside, Hannah met his eyes with no pride, no fear, only certainty. "Turn that key," she said, "and the entire control system will lock before those children make it back to school." For 3 seconds, no one moved. Rain drummed against the roof. The school bus idled in silence, its dashboard glowing like a warning no one had understood. Mason looked from Hannah to the ignition switch. "You are certain?" he asked. "No," she said. "I am careful." The customer in the golf jacket laughed again. "That is confidence now." Hannah did not turn toward him. She walked to the side panel, crouched beside the front wheel, and connected her scanner to the diagnostic port. The device was old, scratched, and wrapped with black tape near the cable. One mechanic shook his head. "That thing belongs in a museum." "So does your attitude," Hannah replied. Mason almost smiled, but the pressure of the morning held it back. She studied the data for several seconds, then asked, "When did the warning light first appear?" The bus driver leaned through the open door. "About 5 miles outside town." "Did the heater stop at the same time?" "For a minute." "Did the lights dim when you turned left?" The driver blinked. "Yes." Hannah nodded once. "The voltage controller is failing under load. The sensor is reporting normal numbers because it is reading before the drop, not during it." Mason folded his arms. "That would trigger 3 other codes. Unless the ground connection is loose." She reached beneath the panel, found a corroded bolt, and held up 2 fingers darkened with rust. The garage became quieter. Even the customer stopped smiling. Hannah asked for a socket wrench, a wire brush, and 10 feet of insulated cable. Mason handed them over without argument. She cleaned the connection, bypassed the damaged section, and reset the controller. Her movements were quick but never careless. 3 questions, 2 tests, 1 repair. Try it now, she said. Mason turned the key. The dashboard lights rose evenly. The engine settled into a smooth rhythm. No warning tone. No system lock. Behind the fogged windows, the children began clapping without knowing why. The bus driver exhaled and shook Hannah's hand. 3 shops looked at this last week. They looked at the code, she said, not the pattern. The customer stepped closer, suddenly interested. Caldwell Premier Motors could use someone like you. Hannah disconnected her scanner. I am not looking for a showroom. We pay better than this place. She glanced around at the leaking roof, the stained concrete, and Mason standing beside a lunchbox meant for a daughter waiting at school. That is not always the same as offering more. The man's expression hardened. Your loss. Maybe. He left without apologizing to Mason. The garage door rattled shut behind him, and the sound lingered like a final insult. Mason looked at Hannah's folder on the counter. You were right. About the controller? About what happens when people stop listening. She met his eyes. And you were wrong. About what? Needing a wife. Mason rubbed the back of his neck. I deserve that. You deserve worse, but I am applying for a job. He picked up the folder and opened it. Her resume listed advanced diagnostic certifications, electric vehicle systems, and 10 years of experience, but several company names had been removed. Why are these sections blank, he asked. Because I am asking you to judge the work. Not the past. Not yet. Mason looked toward the bus as it pulled into the rain, then toward the handwritten, help wanted sign Lily had taped to the window. 3 days, he said. Trial period. Hannah extended her hand. 3 days. He shook it. Her grip was steady. 1 condition, Mason added. No more rescuing my entire life. Hannah picked up her scanner. Then stop leaving so many things broken. By the second morning, Hannah had repaired 2 vehicles, reorganized the diagnostic bench, and offended nearly everyone who believed experience was measured only in grease stains. Mason watched her from beneath the raised hood of a pickup while she explained a battery management error to a retired teacher who had been charged twice by another shop. You do not need a new battery, Hannah said. You need an honest invoice. The woman looked toward Mason. Is she always this direct? I have known her for 23 hours, he replied. It feels longer. Hannah glanced over her shoulder. That is because you argue slowly. The garage filled with the sound of an air compressor, a radio playing old country music, and tools clicking against metal. Outside, the rain had cleared, leaving the parking lot bright beneath a pale Ohio sky. Just before noon, a school bus stopped at the curb. Lily Reed jumped down wearing a purple backpack and carrying a paper bag with both hands. Dad, you forgot lunch again. Mason closed his eyes. I was going to eat. Coffee is not food. Lily placed the bag on the workbench, then noticed Hannah. Her gaze moved from the clean diagnostic tablet to the oil smudge on Hannah's cheek. Are you the new mechanic? Temporarily. Did Dad say something embarrassing? Mason dropped a wrench into the tray louder than necessary. Hannah folded her arms. Your father has a gift. Lily nodded with the weary understanding of someone who had lived with him for 9 years. He talks when he is tired. I noticed. The apartment above the garage was small enough that every sound traveled through the ceiling. Lily carried the lunches upstairs, and Hannah followed when Mason asked her to check a wiring diagram stored near the kitchen desk. She paused at the top of the stairs. The room was modest but warm, with family photographs along one wall and Lily's drawings covering the refrigerator. A faded picture showed Mason beside a smiling woman in front of the garage on opening day. My mom, Lily said quietly. She painted the sign. Hannah looked through the window at the weathered Reed Auto Repair lettering. She had a steady hand. She said Dad could fix anything except dinner. Mason entered carrying 3 plates. Your mother exaggerated. Lily lifted the edge of a burned grilled cheese sandwich. She did not. Hannah laughed before she could stop herself. The sound changed the room. Mason stood still for half a second, as if laughter had become unfamiliar in that kitchen. Lily noticed too. Children often saw the moments adults tried to hide. I wrote the help wanted sign, she said. Dad said we could not afford anyone. Lily. He sleeps in the office when there are too many cars. Sometimes he forgets to come upstairs. Hannah looked toward Mason. You did not mention that. It was not part of the interview. Neither was marriage, but you brought that up. Lily covered a smile with both hands. Mason set down the plates. Can we eat before I lose control of this conversation? They sat together beneath the yellow kitchen light while trucks passed on the road below. Hannah showed Lily how a diagnostic code worked, explaining that a machine could report a problem without understanding its cause. Like people? Lily asked. Exactly like people. Mason watched Hannah guide her through the numbers with patience, never speaking down to her, never pretending the question was foolish. For the first time since his wife died, the kitchen felt less like a room being preserved and more like a place still alive. Then Hannah's phone vibrated on the table. She read the message, and all warmth left her expression. Caldwell found you. Come home before he does. Mason noticed. Problem. Hannah turned the phone face down. Just someone from my past. Down in the garage, a black luxury sedan had pulled into the lot. The man stepping out wore a tailored coat and the satisfied smile of someone who already believed the property belonged to him. The man from the black sedan did not enter the garage like a customer. He entered like an owner arriving early. Richard Caldwell removed his leather gloves, surveyed the leaking roof, the crowded workbench, and the faded Reed Auto Repair sign visible through the front windows. Still standing, he said. Mason came down the stairs first, Lily close behind him. Hannah followed more slowly. The moment Caldwell saw her, his smile sharpened. There you are. Mason looked between them. You know each other? Everyone in this business knows a Brooks, Caldwell replied. The garage seemed to change around that name. The radio continued playing softly. A wrench rolled an inch across the concrete and stopped. Hannah did not look away. I am here to work. At this place. Caldwell glanced toward Mason. You really have no idea who she is. Mason's expression hardened. Before he could answer, an older woman pulled into the bay in a faded green station wagon. The engine shuddered as she turned it off. Mason, I am sorry to interrupt, she said. The brake warning came back. Mason recognized the car immediately. It had belonged to his late wife, Emily, before medical bills forced him to sell it. For a moment, he could not speak. Lily touched the front fender with both hands. Mom's car, she whispered. The older woman nodded gently. I bought it from the second owner. I did not know until I found the service papers. Mason lifted the hood with care, as though opening a box of memories. Hannah connected her scanner while Caldwell watched from a distance, amused by everyone's discomfort. Electronic brake controller, Mason said. It was replaced 6 months ago. And it is failing again, Hannah replied. That part is almost new. The label is new. She removed the module and wiped away a layer of grime. Beneath the printed serial number was a second marking, faint but familiar. Hannah went still. Mason noticed. What is it? A counterfeit production code. Whose code? Caldwell answered before she could. Brooks Automotive. Mason turned toward Hannah. Brooks? She closed her eyes for a brief second. My family's company. The truth landed harder because she had chosen not to say it. Mason set down the tool in his hand. You told me to judge the work. I meant that. You left half your resume blank. Because the name changes what people see. It changes what I should have known. Caldwell stepped closer, satisfied. Her father owns one of the largest automotive suppliers in the Midwest. Hannah Brooks did not come here because she needed hourly wages. Then why did she come? Mason asked. Hannah looked at the station wagon, then at Lily. Because I warned them about parts like this. No one listened. Caldwell laughed softly. That is one version. It is the true one. Truth from a woman who walked away before the audit? Mason's face tightened. He wanted to trust the woman who had saved a school bus and brought laughter back into his kitchen. But the counterfeit module sat between them, carrying her family's name. Rainwater dripped from the corner of the roof into a metal bucket with slow, hollow taps. Lily looked from her father to Hannah, sensing the fracture before either adult admitted it. Did you come here because of us? Mason asked. No, Hannah's answer was immediate. I came because I needed somewhere honest. And you thought hiding your name was honest? She removed the temporary shop key from her pocket and placed it on the workbench. I lied about my family. I never lied about your cars. Caldwell's smile widened. Mason looked at the key, then at Hannah. The garage that had felt alive an hour earlier now seemed colder than the rain outside. Before anyone could speak again, 2 county vehicles pulled into the lot. A building inspector and an automotive compliance officer stepped out carrying sealed envelopes. Caldwell adjusted his coat. "That will be the audit," he said. The officer entered, looked directly at Mason, and handed him the notice. Reed Auto Repair was suspended pending investigation for installing counterfeit safety parts. Mason read the page once, then again. When he looked up, Hannah was still standing there. So was Caldwell. One had hidden the truth. The other had arrived too quickly to be surprised. The compliance officer finished taping the suspension notice across the front door while Mason stood beneath the garage lights, reading the same paragraph until the words lost meaning. Effective immediately. No repairs. No customer vehicles released without inspection. No reopening until the county completed its review. Caldwell remained near the bay entrance with the patience of a man watching a lock turn exactly as planned. "This can be over today," he said. Mason folded the notice once. "You move fast. I prepare. For inspections that have not happened yet." Caldwell smiled. "For opportunities." He removed a folder from his coat and placed it on the workbench beside Hannah's key. Inside was an offer to purchase the garage, the apartment above it, and the narrow strip of land along the highway. The number was enough to clear Mason's debts, replace Lily's college savings, and leave something after the bank took its share. "You have until 5, Caldwell said. "After that, the offer drops." Lily looked at the papers, then at her father. "Are we losing the house?" "No," Mason said too quickly. Hannah heard the fear beneath it. She stepped toward the counterfeit brake module. This part came through Caldwell's distribution network. Caldwell gave a small laugh. "That is a serious accusation from someone who left her own company during an internal investigation. I left because they buried my report. You left because your father stopped protecting you." Mason turned toward her. "Enough." The word was quiet, but it closed the room. "Mason, listen to me. You knew who he was." "Yes." "You knew these parts existed." "Yes." "And you still walked into my shop without telling me." Hannah held his gaze. "Because I thought if I used my name, you would never see me. Now I do not know what I saw." The sentence hurt more than anger would have. Hannah reached into her folder and removed copies of engineering reports bearing Brooks' automotive letterhead. Several pages were marked with rejected safety warnings and internal notes. "These are mine," she said. "I filed them 18 months ago. The counterfeit codes match what I found then." Caldwell glanced at the papers, and for the first time, his confidence narrowed. "Those documents are confidential. The safety analysis is my work. Your father will disagree. Then he can say it publicly." Mason did not take the papers. "I cannot risk Lily's home on documents I cannot verify." Hannah nodded slowly. She understood the fear. She also understood the wall he had raised around it. "Then verify them. The shop is closed. Truth is not." Caldwell gathered the purchase agreement and slid it closer to Mason. "You really want to gamble everything on her?" Lily stepped between the adults and picked up Hannah's temporary key from the bench. She fixed the bus. Mason looked down at his daughter. "That does not prove everything." "No," Lily said, "but it proves something." Hannah's eyes softened, but she did not ask Mason to choose her. She removed her shop jacket, folded it carefully, and placed it beside the key. "I will find the original distribution records," she said. "Not for my family. Not for Caldwell. For every driver who trusted a label." Mason stared at the purchase offer. "And if you cannot, then you will never see me again." Caldwell watched her walk toward the door. "You always did confuse stubbornness with courage." Hannah stopped beside him. "And you always confused silence with permission." She stepped into the rain without looking back. By sunset, the garage was dark except for the office lamp above Mason's desk. Lily slept upstairs while he reviewed the purchase agreement alone. The refrigerator hummed through the ceiling. Water struck the metal bucket in slow, measured drops. He could keep the apartment. He could protect his daughter. He could end the fear with one signature. Then he reached the final page and found the added condition. Mason Reed must state that Hannah Brooks had supplied the counterfeit parts and falsified the repair records. Caldwell did not only want the property. He wanted Mason's name beneath a lie. At 8 the next morning, Caldwell returned with a fountain pen, 2 copies of the agreement, and the confidence of a man who believed fear always arrived before courage. Mason met him in the darkened garage. The suspension notice still crossed the front door, and Lily sat on the office steps holding a bowl of cereal she had not touched. "You have 5 minutes," Caldwell said. "That is generous." Mason placed the unsigned contract on the workbench. No, Caldwell's smile did not move. You should read the number again. I read the condition. A simple statement. A lie. A statement that keeps a roof over your daughter. Lily looked down at the cereal. The old refrigerator above them clicked on, and somewhere in the closed garage a cooling engine made a soft metallic sound. Mason felt the weight of every bill, every late payment. Every night Lily had fallen asleep while he worked below. Take the deal, Dad, she said quietly. He turned toward her. What? If you think it is right. Caldwell's smile widened. Lily lifted her eyes. But if it is not right, then this house will not feel like ours anymore. Mason stared at his daughter. Children did not always understand money, but they understood shame. He tore the signature page in half and placed both pieces in front of Caldwell. We are done. Caldwell's expression finally changed. You think pride will save this place? No. Mason gathered the remaining pages. Truth might. Across town, Hannah stood inside the marble lobby of Brooks' automotive headquarters, facing the father she had spent years trying to impress. Walter Brooks looked older than his portrait in the annual reports, but no less controlled. Come home, he said. I am standing in your building. You know what I mean. Hannah placed her engineering reports on his desk. Release the distribution records. That would expose the company. The company sold parts carrying our codes. Counterfeit parts. Through a network you approved. Walter's jaw tightened. Be careful. I was careful 18 months ago. You buried the report. I protected 20,000 employees. You protected the stock price. Morning light fell across the glass conference table, cold and flawless. Hannah removed the company identification card from her bag and set it beside the reports. If you refuse, I resign every claim tied to my position. Including the trust? Including the trust. Walter looked at her as if she had spoken in another language. You would give up your inheritance for a mechanic you met 3 days ago. No, Hannah's voice softened. I would give it up because I finally met people who cannot afford our silence. She left before he answered. That evening, Mason sat alone at the garage desk when the side door opened. Hannah stepped inside carrying 2 storage boxes and a weatherproof file case. Her coat was damp, her face tired, and there was no company badge at her collar. You came back, he said. I said I would find the records. Did your father help? No, then what is that? Files I created while I was chief diagnostic engineer. I have the legal right to use my own safety analysis. Mason looked at the boxes, but did not touch them. I do not know if I can trust you. Hannah nodded. Then do not. She opened the first case and placed 3 reports beneath the office lamp. Check the codes. Check the dates. Check every word. Rain began again against the metal roof. Lily appeared at the bottom of the stairs carrying 3 sandwiches wrapped in foil. She set one beside Hannah, one beside Mason, and kept the last for herself. How long will this take? She asked. Hannah looked at the stacks of invoices, inspection logs, and counterfeit serial numbers. Maybe 3 days. Lily pulled a chair closer. Then we should start now. Mason looked at Hannah across the desk. He had refused the money. She had walked away from power. Neither of them had proof that truth would save the garage. But for the first time since the doors were sealed, they were no longer facing the lie alone. For 3 days, the lights in Reed Auto Repair stayed on long after the rest of town went dark. Mason checked invoices until the numbers blurred. Hannah compared serial codes against inspection records. Lily carried down sandwiches, sharpened pencils, and once, at 2 a.m, a blanket she placed over her father's shoulders without waking him. The garage smelled of cold coffee, machine oil, and rain trapped in old concrete. This number appears 12 times, Mason said, circling a code on an invoice. Same supplier? Hannah asked. Different shops. Same distributor. Caldwell. Every time. They worked in silence for several minutes. The air compressor clicked as it cooled. A fluorescent light buzzed above the office desk. Then Hannah found the second pattern. Every garage accused of installing counterfeit parts had received inventory from the same warehouse within 90 days of a failed inspection. That is not random, she said. No, Mason replied. It is a map. They spread county property records across the desk. One shop sat beside a proposed dealership expansion. Another stood near land Caldwell had tried to purchase for years. A third had already closed, its property now listed under a development company connected to Caldwell Premier Motors. Mason leaned back slowly. He sells them bad parts, reports them, then buys the land after they lose their licenses. Hannah nodded. And Brooks' automotive codes make the parts look legitimate. Can we prove he ordered them? Not yet. Mason looked toward the stairs, where Lily slept on the office couch beneath her blanket. Then we keep going. By the third afternoon, they had connected 27 counterfeit shipments to 6 small garages across 3 counties. What they still lacked was the order authorization tying Caldwell directly to the warehouse. Hannah opened the last storage box and found a sealed envelope marked with her own handwriting from 18 months earlier. Inside was a draft audit she had never been allowed to present. Attached to it was a vendor approval sheet bearing Richard Caldwell's signature. "There," she whispered. Mason read the page twice. "This is enough to request a hearing. It is enough to make him nervous." As if summoned by the words, a car stopped outside the sealed garage. Caldwell stepped out carrying no folder this time, only an umbrella and a polished expression. He knocked once on the glass. Mason opened the side door, but did not invite him in. "I hear you have been busy," Caldwell said. "Closed shops give a man time. You still have a chance to walk away with something." "I already walked away from your offer. I'm not talking about the property." Caldwell looked past him toward Hannah. "I am talking about your reputation." Hannah came forward holding the vendor sheet. Caldwell's eyes dropped to the signature before he could hide the reaction. "That document proves nothing," he said. "Then you will not mind seeing it at the county hearing," she replied. His voice softened. "Hannah, your father will not stand beside you. I am not asking him to. And when this collapses, Mason loses everything." Mason stepped closer, calm but steady. "You keep saying that like fear belongs to you." Caldwell's smile faded. "The hearing is tomorrow. I am bringing a vehicle with a complete inspection history. It will show exactly what kind of work comes out of this garage." "Which vehicle?" Mason asked. Caldwell opened his umbrella. "You will recognize it." He walked back into the rain before either of them could stop him. Hannah looked at Mason. That was not confidence. "No," Mason said. "That was preparation." The next morning, the county hearing room was crowded before sunrise. Mechanics, reporters, inspectors, and local families filled every row. At the center of the floor sat the faded green station wagon that had once belonged to Mason's wife. Caldwell stood beside it with one hand resting near the ignition. "This vehicle," he announced, "will prove who has been telling the truth." Hannah looked at the dashboard and saw a warning light that had not been there the night they inspected it. She turned to Mason. "Do not let him start that car. Do not touch that key," Hannah said, and the entire hearing room turned toward her. Caldwell kept one hand near the ignition, his expression calm enough to look rehearsed. "Afraid of what the car will show?" he asked. Mason stepped between him and the station wagon. "Move away from it. This vehicle came through your shop, and it was inspected after it left." The county chairman raised one hand. "Mr. Caldwell, step back until the vehicle is examined." Caldwell smiled and obeyed, but the satisfaction in his eyes remained. Hannah opened the driver's door and connected her scanner beneath the dashboard. The warning light pulsed in a pattern she had never seen during the earlier inspection. "The code was added this morning," she said. "Can you prove that?" Caldwell asked. "Yes." She displayed the timestamp on the scanner. The room grew quieter. Mason removed the electronic brake module and placed it on a clean cloth before the board. "This is not the part we documented 3 days ago." "Convenient," Caldwell said. A mechanic accused of fraud discovers new evidence inside his own former customer's car. Mason did not answer the insult. He turned the module over and pointed to the production mark. "First truth. This serial code belongs to a shipment Caldwell Premier Motors ordered through a private distributor." Hannah placed the vendor approval sheet beside it. Caldwell's signature appeared at the bottom. One board member leaned forward. "Is that your authorization?" Caldwell adjusted his cuff. "My company processes thousands of orders." "That was not the question," Hannah said. The chairman looked toward her. "Continue." She opened a folder containing inspection records from 6 independent garages. "Second truth. Every garage accused of installing these counterfeit parts received shipments from the same warehouse. Within 90 days, each shop failed an inspection." She placed county property maps across the table. Red circles marked the closed businesses. Blue lines marked Caldwell's planned dealership expansions. The chairman stopped writing. Reporters lowered their cameras just enough to listen. Caldwell gave a short laugh. "Property development is not a crime." "No," Mason said. "But creating the failure that forces a sale is fraud." Caldwell looked toward the gallery. This is a story built by a desperate mechanic and a woman angry at her father. Hannah's expression did not change. Then let us discuss the third truth. She lifted the audit draft, the warehouse invoices, and a series of payment records. The shell company that purchased the counterfeit modules transferred money to a development firm owned by your brother-in-law. That same firm purchased 2 of the closed garages. The room went still. Caldwell looked toward the rear doors as if measuring the distance. Then Walter Brooks entered. He carried no assistants, no lawyers, and no company photographers. Hannah saw him and straightened, uncertain whether he had come to protect the company or bury the truth. Walter approached the table and placed a sealed corporate file before the chairman. Brooks Automotive confirms that these safety warnings were submitted 18 months ago, he said. My daughter's report was accurate. I refused to release it. Hannah's eyes lowered for 1 second. Walter continued. That refusal was wrong. Caldwell's face tightened. You are destroying your own company. No, Walter replied. I am finally telling it the truth. The chairman opened the file and compared the signatures. One record connected Caldwell directly to the counterfeit supplier. Another showed advance notice of inspections at each targeted garage. A third contained a private purchase agreement for the Reed property dated 2 weeks before the suspension. No one spoke. The silence did what anger could not. It removed every place Caldwell had left to hide. The chairman closed the file. Reed Auto Repair is cleared to reopen immediately. Mr. Caldwell's records will be referred for independent investigation. Caldwell looked at Mason. You think this changes what you are? Mason rested one hand on the roof of the station wagon. No, it changes what everyone can finally see. Security asked Caldwell to leave. He walked out beneath the eyes of the mechanics he had dismissed, the families he had endangered, and the daughter who had once believed his money made him untouchable. Hannah remained beside Mason as the chairman removed the suspension notice from the evidence file. Lily hurried from the gallery and wrapped both arms around her father. Mason looked over her head at Hannah. 3 days earlier, he had questioned why she came. Now the answer stood beside him, tired, uncertain, and still there when the engine had stopped. In the weeks after the hearing, Reed Auto Repair reopened beneath a freshly painted sign, but the old name remained. Mason refused offers from investors who suddenly admired the property they had ignored when it was struggling. He replaced the leaking section of roof, hired 2 apprentices from the local trade school, and set aside 1 service bay for free safety inspections on vehicles carrying the counterfeit parts. Hannah stayed, not as an employee waiting for instructions and not as an heir buying influence. She became Mason's equal partner, with her own key, her own desk, and her name beneath his on the new business license. Walter Brooks announced a full recall, compensated the affected garages, and created an independent safety division that Hannah agreed to advise only if its reports could never again be buried. Trust did not return all at once. It came quietly, through open records, difficult apologies, and the discipline of doing the next honest thing. Lily adapted faster than either adult. She moved Hannah's coffee mug beside Mason's, added a 3rd hook near the apartment door, and stopped asking whether Hannah would be there for dinner. She simply set 3 plates. One Saturday morning, several months later, Mason found the old help wanted sign on the office floor. Lily had crossed out the original words with a thick blue marker. Beneath them, she had written, "We found the right person." Hannah stood in the service bay calibrating a diagnostic unit when Mason carried the sign to her. "I owe you an apology," he said. "Only one. I am starting with the worst one." Hannah leaned against the workbench. Sunlight entered through the raised garage door, catching dust in the air and warming the concrete floor. Outside, a customer started an engine that now ran smoothly. "I should never have said what I said that first morning," Mason continued. "I was tired, embarrassed, and trying to hold together more than I could manage. None of that made it respectful." Hannah studied him. "You were looking for someone to cook dinner, answer phones, raise your daughter, and repair electrical systems. When you say it like that, I sound worse." "You sounded worse in person." Mason accepted the judgment with a small smile. "I did not need a wife. I needed help, and I was too proud to admit it." Hannah's expression softened. "You needed a partner. You just did not know the word yet." Lily appeared in the doorway carrying a box of donuts. "I knew the word." Mason looked at her. "Of course you did." She placed the box on the counter, then hurried upstairs to find napkins. The garage settled into a gentle rhythm around them. Tools clicked. A radio played softly. The scent of coffee mixed with motor oil and fresh paint. Mason looked at the new key hanging from Hannah's belt. "And did I find one?" he asked. Hannah glanced toward the stairs where Lily had disappeared, then toward the open garage door and the row of cars waiting outside. "You found someone who stayed when the engine stopped." "That sounds like a yes." "It sounds like you still need to learn patience." He nodded. "I can work on that." "Good. I repair systems. I do not perform miracles." Mason looked around the shop that had survived because 3 people refused to sign their names beneath a lie. "I'm not sure there is much difference." Hannah smiled, not the guarded smile she once gave strangers, but one that belonged to a place where she no longer had to prove the value of her name. Lily returned and placed 1 donut in front of each of them. Above the office window, she hung the rewritten sign. The morning light spread across the service bays as the first customer pulled inside. Mason reached for his tools. Hannah opened the diagnostic tablet. Lily climbed onto the office stool with her homework. No one made a speech. No one needed to. The garage door rose. The engine turned over. And for the first time in years, none of them began the day alone.